Hey everyone, welcome back to 2024 Our Story. I'm Ellen,
I'm Alyssa.
and today we have a special guest.
Hello, my name's Grace. I'm a freshman at Scripps, and I'm from the San Juan Islands in Washington State. I'm undecided currently, but I'm interested in the EEP major, which is Environment, Economics, and Politics, and maybe a minor in Spanish.
Wow, that's so awesome. How did you know you want to do EEP?
Well, see, that's the thing, I couldn't decide. So I went with one that incorporates the three things I'm interested in. But honestly, I'm sure I'll come out being like an art history major. So we'll see how it goes.
Art history. That's so cool though. We are so excited to have you on here. And so today's podcast, Alyssa, would you like to share what we will be talking about?
Yeah, today we are going to be talking about fall plans, like whether you, just in general for this school year, whether you chose to defer or gap year, all the different options that were given. Just whether you did decide to do the fall semester or not, whether you're going to be doing the spring semester or not, just all those options and what you think about it.
I I decided to go in the fall. I was supposed to spend the summer in Sweden, but that didn't end up working out. So, and because with all the COVID restrictions with travel, I just figured, I already have the momentum from high school, might as well, and you get to meet professors and students in a different way. So I decided to attend. And obviously, Helen, you did too.
Yes. we were fall students. Woo! But yeah, so I think Grace said this too, but I also decided that I was lucky enough to have the resources and the time to be able to take classes during the pandemic, and I figured I might as well just continue considering everything that was going on, and limited options in general. But I do know friends who did take a gap year, and they did pretty amazing things too, just a little more out there than I was comfortable doing. How about you, Alyssa?
I think honestly, it ended up being like my decision ended up coming down to time. I really, I don't know, who knows, what's happening with the pandemic and when it's going to be quote unquote over, or any of the plans throughout our college career, I feel like are kind of flexible right now. So I was a little more concerned about losing time because I considered if you deferred or took a gap year, I wasn't really sure if there was anything more productive I could be doing, honestly. Because I mean, I'm at home not doing much. So I figured that you might as well jump into fall first year college, and it ended up great. So I'm happy about that decision. But I definitely understand people who've like done really cool things during the fall. I've seen people like whether they got a job or did an internship or did anything else, or some people, I don't know, they were like, I think they traveled before and they ended up staying wherever they were traveling, I think some people. So that must have been an interesting experience. But yeah.
I'm honestly curious. Did the summer class that we took influence your decisions to continue in the fall?
Ooh, I enjoyed it, and I thought I was going to continue in the fall anyways. But don't get me wrong, Professor Ketcher he's a good man. And I don't know about you guys, but I learned a lot, and that kind of turned me more onto the economics path too. What about you? Did it impact you?
I think for me, I already knew. I think I already knew that I wanted to take classes in the fall anyway. So I kind of used that summer class as a getting ready, trying to prep myself for taking a college class. Um,
Totally.
I admit I wasn't particularly like interested in just I wasn't I'm not considering doing like environmental economics for my major. At least I don't think so. Who knows? Things could change. But I kind of just use it as like a intro to college and trying to like get it together before I actually started the fall, because I was worried about the transition between online high school, like end of senior year. I don't know about you guys, but it was pretty like easy. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. So I just wanted to get back.
Do you think it was nice for you, Alyssa, to kind of make that academic transition while you were still in a familiar environment at home?
Oh yeah, definitely. I I'm definitely a person of comfort. I like having routines and I like knowing what's going on. So in general, the pandemic has been a little bit difficult for me that way with my personality. But it was honestly, it was a great class. And I got to meet you guys. I got to kind of feel the difference of a college class. It was more low key than I thought it would be, which like I learned a lot and it was really interesting, but I don't know, I was a little more freaked out about it, but it ended up being completely fine. The transition, it really did help me.
Yeah,
What
the
you
summer
guys?
was a, I agree with you, Alyssa. I think the summer was a really nice way to move from kind of like that weird high school bubble that we were in into like the college environment, especially during a time when the high school bubble wasn't necessarily fully there. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like you weren't in the specific high school like physical environment where it felt it to me it just feels so different. Like I know that we're not on campus and it would feel like the transition would be much more different for me at least because I went to such a small school in high school, but even like just talking to people, you get like such a different vibe than just the original high school class that I was from. And yeah, I mean, I knew that I wanted to do the fall even before the summer class. I think the summer class was just a way for me to fill time as well. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, and I knew I was interested in EA, but the science track. So I figured I might as well look into options for EA. And luckily, the EA or environmental economics fulfills one of the requirements for the EA science track, which is really nice. Yes. But yeah, I actually had a difficult time because they offered the gap semester and not the gap year. Did you guys consider the gap semester?
Again, kind of like Alyssa was saying, I didn't know what I was going to do during the summer because you can't travel. And just at that point, it was still pretty shut down in terms of like restaurants or kind of work opportunities for young people. And I wasn't really sure how to go about the internship at that point.
I definitely felt more productive because I took the class. There, like you're saying, I couldn't really think of anything else. And I also, I don't, I don't know. I was looking a lot into like the future and thinking 4 years from now or whenever I end up graduating, hopefully 4 years from now. But I wanted to look and be like, is it worth it for me? Like, I'm a fan of pro and con lists. So that ended up being a great resource for me for trying to decide what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to graduate like in a weird semester, like in the fall or something, or not that I'm afraid of like being alone, like maybe just a little bit, but like, or not graduating at the same time as like a bunch of my friends. But I wanted to stay on track, I didn't want to waste that time because I figured by the end of the 4 years, hopefully this is all over, at least COVID. So
Let's hope.
yeah,
Yeah, fingers
here's the
crossed.
hoping, but I didn't want to use that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, Alyssa, you were talking about how the environmental economics class that we took during the summer was a nice transition for you, and it wasn't as stressful as you thought it might be. How did the semester compare to that first class experience?
Um, it's definitely different taking 4 classes instead of just one in the summer. But to be fair, our summer class was really short, right? Like, I'm just, it felt pretty short. It felt pretty fast for me, at least. I mean, the classes were kind of long, but the amount of time you were actually in the class seemed pretty short. So it, I think work wise, it was like that was the best transition because there wasn't too much work from that class, but it also gave me a sense of how much work per class I'd be getting. Um, so it helped me. How did you guys feel about I don't know, how long were you doing that class? Like 2 weeks or something? 3 weeks?
No, like
Longer?
Was it long? I thought it was like a
I
month.
don't know.
Was it?
Oh no, it's so much longer than that. Wait, just
it
scratch
was
that.
like 5 weeks,
5 weeks.
a month.
I really don't remember. I have
honestly
such a bad memory. But however long that class was, how did you guys feel about that pacing wise?
I don't know. I mean, I took a seminar class this past fall, and it felt like a seminar class just because it was so long and you get like the little break in between. Um, but I agree with you, Alyssa. I think outside of class work wise, it was not as the workload was not as aggressive as other classes that I took in the fall. But I mean, content wise, there was a lot, and I really appreciate it. I learned a lot from that class.
I think your first semester of college, whether you've taken a summer class to prepare yourself or not, I feel like it kind of hits you like a train to some degree. I don't know about you guys, but I took a Spanish class, which I had taken in high school, but at least the transition from my high school Spanish department to like Spanish 44 in your first semester of college was definitely like it was intense. It was a lot of material, but it was also really fast paced. So it was definitely a difficult transition, but I feel like it is for everybody, whether you're dealing with being at a new place or not.
That actually reminds me of another reason why I wanted to not take the gap was because I didn't want to take core with a different grade or to like be behind in the core cycle and have to restart core at the beginning. I feel like that was such a big part of my decision that I completely forgot about.
I didn't even realize that. I didn't even think about that. But that is a very good point. I feel like I just made my decision so early that I didn't even consider not taking the fall semester as an option. But yeah, it would suck to be doing core at a different time than everyone else, because I feel like everyone bonded a little bit from core. At least my class did. We talked about it a lot, but how about you guys? Was your core class like a good way of bonding with people, or?
I I really enjoyed this structure of talking about the similar theme or the same theme of truth within different lenses of like sociology and mathematics. I really liked the exploration, but I feel like a conversation-based class is a little bit more difficult when everybody like this is everybody's well pretty much everybody's first class in college and it's over Zoom. So I think that made the class a little bit difficult for me.
Yeah, I mean, our class was quiet in many ways. We ended up talking at the end, which was nice. So we like scheduled movie nights and tried to like get to know each other some more, which was good. And I made some friends out of that class. But I would definitely say that it was difficult at the beginning just because it was awkward. So the way that core was set up. Okay, wait. Let's walk through this real quick. Because of COVID-19, we had like they had to change the whole formatting of core, right? So we did online well, actually, how did your core classes work? Did you guys do breakout rooms and then come back together, or did you like just talk as like one giant Zoom room the entire time?
Apparently my core experience was very different than yours, Ellen. So I'm honestly not sure what if there's a standard like a standard version of what core is supposed to be like. But how about Grace, you can go first and let us
Bridge
know
the
how.
gap.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So we watched the lecture asynchronously, and then there was an optional Q&A on Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday we'd have discussion. And I think mine was also formatted different than both of yours because the first day we had more of like a class discussion, and then the second day students would sign up for spots to like lead the discussion. So that way they could kind of decide if they wanted people to be in smaller breakout rooms or just two or all together. And I think that was an effective way of letting the students kind of approach the topics that they wanted to with some guidance from the professor.
That's really interesting. That definitely sounds more like what Alyssa's class was. Alyssa, do you want to explain what your class was?
Yeah. I I think mine was pretty similar to yours, Grace, because we did also have students lead the discussions, which I thought was super cool because people got to decide what different activities they wanted us to do too. Like you could, if you wanted, like discuss the discussion questions that we had, or you could, I think there was some extra material that one of the professors gave after their lecture that was optional. So I don't know if the classes actually looked at that material as much as the other parts of the lecture that the professor gave, but we got to dive in a little bit more into that, which was really interesting. We also had, for discussions, you had to also reply to people. Like you had to like reply a bunch, and we just kept the conversation going a lot. Like we had usually like 40 comments or something under one discussion like forum each week. So not one question, but like each week we had one forum on Sakai where you went, and it ended up being a lot. It wasn't always 40, depending on the week, but I think it went up to that number. I think. I'm not sure.
Your guys' classes sound so much more interactive than mine. So we did the same. Well, okay. So like Grace was saying, we watched the core lectures asynchronously, and then we were assigned weeks to go to the Q&A session. So one person was always at the Q&A session, and then they did a report back on Wednesday. And then my professor he would collect all of the questions that we had submitted, or the questions that he thought were good that we submitted, and put them on a slideshow. I know, you could always tell if your question was going to get full points if it was on the slideshow. And so he had like the slideshow up, and we would just go through the questions, and each question he would put us in a breakout room. We would talk there, and then we'd come back. And that was the same thing every week, which I mean worked. But
Was it an allotted amount of time, or did it kind of just vary upon like how people were doing in their discussion?
I would say that we spent a lot of time on some questions and not as much on others. So it was depending on how much we had to say about each one. So it worked. We got good discussions in.
Yeah.
Just different from you guys.
I think for my class, what really helped with bonding us a little bit more and just really getting a little more of like a Scripps community feeling was that we spent time in breakout rooms of 2 at first for a while, and then we went to like 4, and then we went to 8, and then we'd go back to 16, or how many people were there that day. But I think it really did help being able to be in breakout rooms. I know that breakout rooms are different for a lot of people. Some people just, if nobody really talks in that breakout room, you're all just kind of staring at each other, or everyone has their cameras off, or maybe one person has their camera on, and it can be kind of awkward. But for us, it was a good opportunity to talk. How about, I know our classes were kind of similar, Grace, so did you guys have that like breakout room situation going on too?
That's an interesting question. I actually petitioned our teacher, and when she asked for feedback, part of the way through the class year, honestly, our class didn't know each other very well. And so I requested breakout rooms and kind of talk to some other people. And eventually we would do that. Like she'd come up with a theme, and we'd get to go in breakout rooms of 2 or 3 people and bond a little bit. But I definitely had to go more out of my way to kind of meet people, and that took the form of me wearing like crazy hats and outfits like during core, so I could make friends. And it worked. So you know what? Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Do you have a favorite crazy hat?
Oh man. Oh, and I'd pair the hats with scarves and stuff, and sometimes I'd do like an Indiana Jones vibe or like a cat in a hat vibe. We have a lot of crazy hats at my house.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, maybe my favorite is one that's probably like solidly the size of my torso, and for reference, I'm about 5'2". And it's pink, and it has fuzz around the outside and the top, and it has like pink and black zebra stripes. It's definitely a conversation starter.
That's so cool though.
Yes, that is amazing. Oh my goodness.
That's a great way to make friends. Like that, I feel like I should note that down or something. Start getting myself some crazy hats.
Well, if you're in that breakout room and people aren't talking, it
Grace is on top of it. I need to take all my tips on how to make friends from Grace.
I don't know about that, but they had a good sense of humor, so that helped.
How do you guys feel about like spring semester and the chances of actually going on campus? Because I'm kind of doubting it a little bit. But what do you guys think? No, I don't know.
mean, like, no one wants to respond to you, Alyssa. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think right now, based on trends, the chances are really low. I'd like to keep my fingers crossed that there is still the chance after spring break, but given it's after spring break, and like you have to assume that people aren't going to follow guidelines if they haven't been right now, um, and that just decreases my certainty of going back.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so what? It's early to mid-January right now. So that would be in 2 months, and numbers are still rising right now. And for students to come back, I think LA County has to be in a certain zone for several weeks. So first they'd have to get down to the appropriate zone, and then they'd have to stay in the appropriate zone. And by the time that we'd be coming back, I don't see it. But
I'm not like horribly mad about it. Like I'm not that upset about it. I feel like I'd be more upset if they like brought us and then like made us leave right after or something, you know? I feel like I'd rather them tell us early on, you know? I know that they're losing money probably from us not being there and stuff, but I just hope that when the time comes and we figure out for sure what's going to be happening, that they're like really straight up with us, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. It's better to be safe than sorry. In like, if you look at it as like a whole, I agree. It's better to be safe than sorry, and I'm glad that Scripps is being safer in this situation. It's like, oh, it's frustrating.
and if you think about the quality of life to say, okay, so say maybe we do go after spring break, say that does happen. All of the common spaces are going to be closed. So that means no gym. So then where are you going to work out? In your room? Like where you're in all day, or like run around campus, but you have to wear a mask, and then it's hot in Claremont. And so I'd rather go when things can be a little bit more normal. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but we've had the opportunity to kind of get in the flow, at least where we are. And if we went after spring break, then we'd only have, so March, April, 2 months, 2 months at campus before we'd have to pick up and leave again.
That's a
So,
very good point. Yeah. It's also like, how much could you actually do if we were on campus? Because you would still like, it would still, you could like sit in those outside tent things, but
It'd probably be similar to how we are at home. Like you're staying in a room all day, probably doing online classes. I don't know. Hey, we can be the first sophomores to like go on campus for the first time as sophomores. So I don't know. I'm better safe than sorry, you know. So 3 years
very true.
isn't too bad.
It's a good question. Grace, did you visit the Scripps campus before you decided?
oh yes, I did. I had quite the college journey, visiting schools. I visited Scripps twice actually because I'm very indecisive. But I visited once to tour, and it actually ended up being, I think, 102 the day that I visited. And somehow I decided that, maybe this is a place that I could see myself. So it must have been really good. And then I ended up going again to stay with a student for a night, just so I could get a better feel when I was making a decision, because I ended up applying ED1. I
Yeah,
think you're gonna love it, Alyssa.
I'm pretty sure that I am gonna love it. I just think it's funny at this point that I haven't visited. Not really disappointed because when we get there, it'll be like a grand reveal, you know? So I'm excited.
That's true. And also, you have technically been to Claremont. You
Yeah.
just didn't go to Scripps. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just like it'll be in the back of your mind. And maybe it is in the back of your mind. You saw it somehow and you just like,
Maybe I just haven't like put together those little puzzle pieces in the back of my brain. One day.
But at least, we didn't go through the college application process like the seniors, like this past year's seniors did, applying and not being able to visit any schools mostly. So I don't know. I visited a lot when I was trying to decide. And I just imagine that that's going to be really difficult for this next generation of Scripps students.
Yeah. Yeah, my sister's a senior in high school and she finished her applications this past week and it's crazy. I was like looking through my Snapchat memories and like in October I had visited a bunch of colleges. I was like, oh my goodness, look at this. And then like she had all of these plans to go visit the East Coast and see all those schools in like one run. It just didn't happen. It's so much more difficult for them this year. And they have to write one more essay. They have to write the COVID essay.
There's
Oh,
a COVID essay?
You have to like write about how COVID have impacted your applications or whatever,
Oh, I see.
or
To
what
like
you did
kind
with
of,
your time during COVID, or it was something like that. I don't know.
I'm glad I don't have to write that essay.
It's crazy. The application season just looks so much different this year.
Wow. I'm just thinking how like, I don't know about you, Grace, but I do know that I think Ellen and I both like visited online classes, like online Scripps classes, second semester, senior year. So just imagine there could be seniors coming into our classes in this spring semester trying to get a feel for Scripps, but we don't even really have a feel for Scripps. So I just think that's kind of interesting.
that is interesting. Yeah, when I think it's still a good thing to do, when you're applying for school. And honestly, I know everybody says this, but I think many people could be happy at several schools. And it's just kind of about going in with a good attitude and knowing that you made your decision for a reason and that you based it on your values and your morals and kind of like who you're like where you want to go and what you want to accomplish. And I think if students just keep that in mind, and if what Script stands for resonates with you, then I think if you go in with a good attitude, everything's going to be all right.
That was
Grace, you are
beautiful.
so wise. Oh my goodness. I think Alyssa and I were talking about how amazing you are in our last podcast, like when we were talking about the summer class.
I know we didn't talk that much after our summer class ended, but you were very impressive in the class. I remember you like spoke up a lot and you talked a lot, and that was very cool to me.
Thank you. That's very sweet. I know. I'm so sorry. I feel like you meet so many people at Scripps and then classes are such a whirlwind and you don't end up being able to keep in touch. But I can't wait to see you guys in person, and then you're going to end up being 6 feet tall or something I didn't expect. And
No, I'm like,
Okay, well, I guess that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Grace, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, Alyssa, anything else you'd like to add?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.